The Maya are one of the most mysterious civilizations of the world and especially Mesoamerica. The pantheon of Mayan gods is huge and complex. Mayan gods are portrayed with more than one name and in many forms associated with multiple aspects of life. Bolon Yokte is one of these gods and he appears in Mayan creation monuments. The same deity had been linked to the hype of the end of the world in December 2012, although there is no explicit basis for that idea in Maya teachings. In fact, at that time, the god Bolon Yokte was prophesied to descend presumably from a heaven realm to earth. There is often mention of Bolon Yokte in the ancient Mayan hieroglyphs, sometimes mentioned plural and sometimes single. The literal meaning of the name of this deity is numerous strides. That does not help to define this deity, whereas some scholars like Marcus Ebrel and Christian Prager suspect that Bolon Yokte represents an ancient name that was no longer completely transparent to the classical Maya scribes. According to them, its actual meaning is numerous are the strides of the deity, and an important variant of the name Bolon Yokte is the addition of Ku. That means divine deity that came from sky. Here we find the same story of Satan and his clan presenting themselves as sky people. Bolon Yokte has also been portrayed on the famous vase of seven gods. Gillespie and Joyce write in their book Ancient Mesoamerica, sky and earth are paired in the opening of the secondary text on the vase of the seven gods for the fourth Ahu 8 Kumku event presided over by God El, in which Bolon Yokte plays a role. Bolon Yokte is known also as God El. Some scholars suggest that God El and Bolon Yokte is the same deity in different roles. Whenever gods and deities are mentioned, there is also mention of heaven and earth and a council of gods. In Mayan mythology, there is a connection between Bolon Yokte and the jaguar foot often seen at the foot of the creation tree of Mayan mythology. Some scholars identify this tree as Milky Way. Dennis Tedlock, translator of Mayan book Popol Vuh, noted that on one of the classic Maya period ceramics, the split in the branches must represent the dark rift in the Milky Way. It is widely acknowledged that the scorpion at the base of the creation tree is the Scorpio constellation. Who is the Bolon Yokte? Related with the nine. He has been translated differently as the god of nine strides, the nine-footed god or jaguar foot tree, and nine-dog tree. Bolon Yokte is known as a single deity in many forms. Eber and Prager have demonstrated that in post-classic and colonial literature, Bolon Yokte is a deity commonly associated with Mayan underworld, warfare, and sacrifice. As plural, they were considered as a group of gods living in the Mayan underworld Xibalba and were generally described as gods of conflict, warfare, and are hence linked with dangerous transition times, social unrest, eclipses, and natural disasters like earthquakes. It is said that at the end of a Baktun, a certain period of time containing 144,000 days, they would abandon their underworld realm and appear to the earth's surface to do battle with 13 heavenly deities. Some scholars think of Bolon Yokte is the title of this deity and his actual name is not known to anyone, and that is the same secrecy that jinn apply to conceal their origin. The leading English Mesoamerican archaeologist of 20th century, Eric Thompson, translated Bolon Yokte as nine strides or numerous strides, but Maya researchers suggest that overall meanings of this name are obscure. Bolon Yokte is known also as the grandfather lord of the Mayan underworld Xibalba. In 2009, Michael Groff published an essay called The Name of God El Bolon Yokte, in which he pointed out that the right sanctuary panel from the Temple of the Cross at Palenque shows an image of God El, the cigar-smoking lord of the underworld, in which he carries the skeletal centipede and that on it are clearly shown 9 footprints. He concludes that God El and Bolon Yokte could be the same deity. Bolon Yokte could be a group of deities that together are the lords of the underworld Xibalba. Various inscriptions suggest that Bolon Yokte is a Maya god associated with warfare, conflict, and the underworld, but also with creation. He is connected with Word Tree, the Mayan symbol of the Milky Way. He is mentioned in several Maya inscriptions. In one inscription, he seems to be interacting with defied crocodile tree, the symbol of Milky Way. Bolon Yokte was present at the time of creation. John Major Jenkins, author of Mayan Cosmogenesis 2012, says, apart from symbolizing war, conflict, and the underworld, Bolon Yokte is a god that is often present during creation events. He has appeared on the ways of the seven gods, one of the gods present during creation of our present world. Scholars like Abrel and Prager identify Bolon Yokte as the center deity in the lower register of the ways of the seven gods based upon the appearance of his headdress. Ancient astronaut theorist Eric von Daniken describes in his famous TV show Ancient Aliens that the Mayan specialists can read it. Will send from heaven god Bolon Yokte. Bolon Yokte was one of the Mayan gods who was present with the creation of man. So they say, will descend god Bolon Yokte. So some gods, some extraterrestrials were expected to return, and definitely some of the gods will return. There is absolutely no doubt. Bolon Yokte was one of the Maya gods who was present with the creation of man. Ancient Aliens theory protagonist Giorgio Tsoukalos further sheds light on it and says, who was this Bolon Yokte? According to the documents that have survived and that are only fragmentary, he was always described as someone with great powers who had the capacity of flight and who had incredible knowledge about the universe. According to Edwin Barnhart, a Mayan archaeologist and director of Maya Exploration Center, the god Bolon Yokte is not a very well understood god. Sometimes he is associated with texts that talk about the beginning of creation back in 3114 BC, and we see him in some contexts that seem to be connected with war. Bolon Yokte also appears to be associated with eclipses. There is a direct correlation between these historical dates that reference Bolon Yokte and eclipses, which were seen as potentially destructive events of the world history. There is much mystery surrounding the legend of Bolon Yokte. Researchers say the ancient Maya believed this entity had visited their ancestors before thousands of years in the past. Giorgio Tsoukalos further reveals that there is another reference to Bolon Yokte at Palenque in Temple 14, where it is clearly stated that Bolon Yokte appeared on earth over 900,000 years ago. And why would anyone in their right mind record a date that goes back over 900,000 years ago? Well, something happened, something very significant, and according to the ancient text, that is when Bolon Yokte descended to earth from sky. Marcus Abrel of Tulane University, New Orleans, USA, and Christian Prager of University of Bonn, Germany, wrote an essay called Bolon Yokte, Maya Conception of War, Conflict, and Underworld. They wrote in the abstract of it, the identification of Bolon Yokte on the ways of the seven gods, number K2796, underscores its importance as one of the gods that were present during the creation of the present world. Now, all three divine religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, provide information about creation that only angels and Satan were present during the time of creation. Here one question arises that this mention of creation of human as described in the Enuma Elish or as described in three divine religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In both cases, Bolon Yokte is the main deity present at the time of creation. Was Bolon Yokte Satan himself? A quick analysis of the narration of three major divine religions of the world about creation suggests that if Bolon Yokte was present at the time of creation of human being, then he must be the Satan himself, when he was called Azazel in the heavens because he was the only person except the angels present at the time of creation of Adam. In fact, many things were created before the creation of Adam, and perhaps Azazel saw many creation events. Satan's landing on earth with an army of angels to cope with rebellion. as Giorgio Tsoukalos tells us that there is another reference to Bolon Yokte at Palenque in Temple 14, where it is clearly stated that Bolon Yokte appeared on earth over 900,000 years ago. Does this text denote the Satan's landing on earth with angels to fight the rebels that caused the bloodshed on earth in antiquity? To deal with these rebels, according to three divine religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, God Almighty sent an army of angels in the leadership of a jinn named Azazel, who later called the Satan after being cursed and banished from the heavens by God Almighty. They fought with those rebels and terminated their rebellion by banishing them from the lower earth and expelled them towards the wilderness, mountains, and islands. There is another possibility that this event could be descent of Satan from heaven after banishment. There are obvious and undeniable similarities between Bolon Yokte and Satan. This is very possible that the god of Maya, Bolon Yokte, was in fact Satan himself, and the other lesser gods were his ally jinn to control humanity.